Hi, everyone. I've got Sid here, GitLab CEO and co-founder. He's here with the October Manager Challenge cohort to answer questions related to leadership and management. And Sarah, it looks like you have the first question, so go ahead and throw it out there.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. For everybody watching, I'm a group manager for the Create stage here at the Product Unit GitLab. Sid, my first question. In becoming a manager, I received feedback from multiple different mentors. That's all been somewhat similar. The gist of it's been, spend your time on the high performers on your team. The same amount of time spent on them can lead to 10 times the output versus time invested trying to engage your low performers. And I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And it's the same time, like, if someone is underperforming, you have to spend time there. But in general, you should try to have your team have more high performers than low performers, so that you're just if you're spending time equally. High performers will appreciate kind of greater access, more frequent meetings. They'll be more proactive on them, asking questions. They'll have more ambitious career goals, all else being equal. So give them, engage more frequently, but ensure that underperformance gets identified and addressed. And in my case, very often that's through a chain, but if that's a report of you, like set clear goals and try to help them try to reach it. But yes, business is both about trying to shore up things that aren't going as well, but also about kind of capitalizing on your strengths, and we should never forget about that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
I also have the next one. Since this session is close to our recent IPO, this came to mind as we were moving through the management course. How much of a factor did our culture play in preparing the company to IPO? As managers, our jobs are to cultivate the culture and then uphold those values that do so.
Yeah, I have some ideas, but let's hear it from the group first.
I'll verbalize and then I'll go back and write it, but I think it was a lot more transparent than I was expecting the entire process, and that was appreciated by me, and I heard good comments from the team.
Yeah, that's actually what I was just about to say. I had not expected the amount of information that was going to come out, and the live stream that was, an entire day's worth of information, and thought it was a cool way to tell our story.
Yeah, I think if anything, watching the live stream being so open is definitely a reflection of our transparency and our credit values. Because if you watched a lot of those interviews, our credit values were reiterated a lot by the team members talking.
And like when it comes to preparing for the IPO rather than the actual IPO event, I know we had it in our handbook that we were going to go public on a certain date, and I know that date didn't happen, but the fact that we had that in our handbook was just ultra transparent in the first place. I think that set a very clear goal for the business generally going forward. So
I think my question was, I love those answers. I think I asked it in a unclear way. I will rephrase. Sid, you've often said one of your main roles as CEO is being the enforcer of values, such that the rest of your leadership team and the company operates within those. So my question was more focused on, do you think leaning so hard into GitLab's values was a large part, small part of what led to our IPO? Is that more clear?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Some things that came to mind, and not necessarily, or not answering your question, but it was, so as we got going public, it's super hard to keep transparency, and I think we did a more than decent job. Now, there's some kind of cleanup to do. I think we made a few things internal that shouldn't have been, and I think we need to clean that up. And but maybe we went a little bit overboard, but we certainly could have done a lot worse. So I'm really proud of how thoughtful we were about that. I thought, and in a recent e-group meeting, I think after going public, but like the legal team was telling people we should be more transparent. Like I think transparency is very much kind of a shared commitment, and that was very great to see too. Was also did a video for Goldman Sachs, and they remarked that for the roadshow presentation and the testing the water presentation, kind of the iteration cycle were very frequent with us, where we said, oh, these 3 changes, please. And that's something they did for the first time with us. And I think it led to a really good presentation that we then also are now leveraging when we talk to potential customers. So that was kind of cool to see.
Awesome. Thanks for your thoughts on that. I'm going to pass it on to Nicholas.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sorry, Sarah, but I really don't know the answer to the question. Like, to what extent is our success due to our values? I think the default CEO answer is like, it's all due to the values. I don't know. It's hard to say. We might just be really lucky in a market that other people didn't see, and so very few companies are in. I do think that we can be proud that we've been able to grow our values over time and make them stronger. I think that's rare. Mostly they dilute over time. And I don't know whether we're successful because or despite them, but it's great that we have strong values. I enjoy that every single day.
Yes, I do. Thank you for the follow-up. I appreciate that.
I'm pretty sure it's thanks to our values. It's just hard to say to what extent. Maybe that's a better way to say. Nicholas?
Thanks, Ed. So I'm an interim manager for a few months now, and I'm the engineering manager for the product intelligence team. And I found it quite overwhelming sometimes, this role. And the only strategy I found was like stricter prioritization and more delegation. But this is also tough because I can overwhelm the team as well. So I would like to know, like, how was your experience when you started leading, and how did you learn to deal with multiple concurrent priorities and the sheer endless information over the years? I can't even imagine it on your level, so I'm very curious.
Yeah, if you're curious, you should try to sign up for the CEO Shadow program at some point, and also read some blog posts by past shadows. I had a meeting earlier today, which wasn't a GitLab meeting, but it's even the GitLab meetings today. Like, I'm pretty strict on how information is organized. Like, if I go into a meeting, I need a Google Doc. It's about that meeting and kind of give context, or you can load that into your brain. Yeah, prioritization, delegation. For example, like, it's super helpful if you always give me the option to just say yes or I approve. So many times, think about, like, you bring a problem, like, think about what you think is the right way to solve it, and then describe that, or give a menu of options to pick from with a recommended one. And then I think, like, async information, and whether that's a doc or a presentation or a video. So allows us to prep. I'm proud that when I have a few minutes earlier today, I was able to read through this and already type in a few answers. I think on average, it's going to lead to better answers than only answering in the moment.
If I may ask as a follow-up question, and are there any times where you think like you're overwhelmed, and like because there's so much going on, like, and how do you deal with this situation?
Yeah, I just don't do certain things. So I haven't answered my the threads in Slack that I should reply to now for 2 days. You know, when I have bandwidth, and it's just likely to be a few hours, I'll start catching up on that. But it's like first email doesn't get replied, then Slack, then WhatsApp, then texts, then phone calls until I'm able. Yeah, I might just do the meetings I'm supposed to participate in, and then if I don't feel like it, I'll cancel those meetings. Although that's rare. But you start taking away communication channels until you feel better.
Thanks. That's an honest answer. I have the next question as well. So I'm curious, how do you approach hiring for roles where you don't have a strong background, maybe? And what do you look out for to judge their expertise?
Yeah. If it's a kind of a new role, then you talk to experts in the industry. I always find that helpful. You just you ask, like, for example, my board members, you ask your manager, like, who's really good, and you try to get some time with them. Hey, I'm recruiting for this role. What should I watch for? Can you help me with interview questions? And then keep thinking of blog posts I still have to write. Actually working on a whole set of executive interview questions right now that I should probably publish. And not only is it a great way to understand the requirements of the job better and what great looks like, but it also and get the questions, but also they'll recommend people, and sometimes you end up hiring those people because they became interested during that call. So like you can win in five ways if you do it. So. And then we're now recruiting for a CMO. Yeah, I think I have to hide this. So these are my criteria to do that. So these are the top 5 criteria. These are other criteria. These are kind of bonus criteria for the role. I try to make sure I have that clear. Mostly in an ideal world, these would all flow from the job family. Thanks for whoever did that screenshot. Appreciate it. Asiana?
Yes, thank you. My next question is, what have been some hard lessons you've learned when it comes to difficult conversations with direct reports?
I'm going to bend this question slightly, if you don't mind, and just ask Tori to write a blog post about this in Slack a few hours earlier today. Big fan of situational leadership. Doesn't mean I always practice it, but I try to vary my delegation style based on the factors below. And those factors are the experience level of the report, their skill in this exact task, my own skill in the task, the importance of the task, the urgency of the task, the group setting for it, like is it group setting. Is it a group? Is it a one-to-one? Is it shadows or no shadows? Are other people able to learn? And like if it's a live stream, I might give more context, so it's also useful to others. The reporting relationship, like are they direct, indirect, external? How long and how frequent the report have to fix it? Well, the frequent is the next one. Did they get feedback on the same thing before? The shortfall of like the current solution to the achievable one. How much that shortfall bothers me. It's not a really objective criteria, but it matters. How much time we have in a meeting for feedback? How long would it give me to give feedback? What state of mind the report is in? Did I already give the feedback earlier? Which is like, it seems similar to, did they get feedback on the same thing before? So I might have to reconsider that. Are there metrics in place to catch this automatically? How long do I expect to work with this person? And how much time it would take me to do it, which sounds pretty similar to how much time do we have? How long does it give to take this? So that's similar to 13.
Thank you.
And that I have an elaborate set of reasons doesn't mean I always get feedback right. I mess up frequently and my own emotional state and everything else. Dick?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So my question revolves around how do you work with a cross-functional team? We learned a lot through this course about your directs and how to give feedback, how to create that collaborative environment. But how do you work across functional areas, and how do you encourage the functional leaders to work together to solve an issue or a challenge?
Oh, that's a broad question. I like to see, like, I think what can really mess things up if you become kind of the in-between station for information. And it feels good initially because you get to hoard information, everyone's dependent on you and everything goes through you, but it leads to a lot of dysfunction in the team. So in one-to-ones, you'll frequently hear me say like, hey, did you already discuss it with that person? Or can you put it on the e-group agenda? That's kind of my go-to, so that we discuss things that are affecting multiple people, that we discuss it in our group setting, and that the important conversations take place in that group setting, and that there's not some kind of like after meeting that's more one-to-one where the important stuff gets discussed. That's I think a very natural thing to fail if you don't watch out for it. Not sure I answered to what extent I addressed your question. Feel free to follow up.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that. I think what I heard was in the training as well, it's a question of being a coach versus a referee. And I heard you say it's better to come at it jointly. So thanks for that approach.
I think it's also what state is it in it. Like in the beginning, you try to coach and get everyone to kind of come up with better ideas and evaluate things. But then in the end, if it's time to make a decision, and then frequently, or you try to avoid me being that. But if I have to be it, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I should do it so that the organization can move on. Simon?
Yeah, thanks, Sid. So we've been learning a lot about psychological safety. And one point that has come up, I think pretty much everyone raised as one actionable point that they can all take away from the learnings, was that we can be more intentional about opening up about our mistakes and our errors that we've made. The sort of Forbes idea of celebration of errors. As a CEO of a now public company, I imagine that highlighting errors is a challenging balancing act between transparency and company image preservation. So I was just wondering, like, how have you had to adapt the way that you surface errors as you see it? And how do you think that's going to change moving forward for both yourself and for kind of us? Like, how cautious do we have to be around surfacing our errors?
Yeah, thanks for that. Totally subscribe to that. Errors, but also like when you change your mind, really important to kind of highlight, oh, wait, I changed my mind, which is kind of like you were wrong about something before. So it's kind of an error, but maybe different than we did something wrong. Like I thought something wrong. I'm newly minted CEO of a public company, so we'll see how I do. I think what's super interesting to me is that various forums have their own kind of ways of communicating. So you can expect me in an earnings call to sound a lot more similar to other earnings calls. So it's easier for the people in that earnings call to calibrate, because all the earnings calls look kind of the same, and kind of they derive information by kind of the delta to another earnings call. And it will be like, we're going to go for the boring solution and make our ones look similar to the other earnings calls, so that it's easier for everyone to understand and that we're all calibrated on the same page. But for example, in other pages, other places, we can do something that's common to that medium. And like, I have my flaws listed on my CEO page, and that is still public. Doesn't mean I'm going to start off the earnings call listing all my personal flaws. Like there's different kind of moments and media and places for different things. And I think that's super important to recognize. And of course, whatever I say has to be internally consistent. Like it's not that I'm telling something else, it's just that you message it in a different way. And in an earnings call, so you're going to be sounding a bit more similar to other companies, while in other medias like this live stream, you can be maybe celebrate the faults a bit more.
So if I'm reading between the lines a little bit, are we sort of saying that, you know, public facing versus private facing versus, you know, internal closed group, it just depends on the context of the
what I'm saying is not whether, what matters is not whether it's public or private. What matters are the expectations around the medium and the form you're using. You're
got it.
And for celebrating errors, this is a public call.
Yep.
Be happy to go into errors I made here. In the earnings calls, it's
just the expected format.
Have a certain way of kind of describing errors, and if you overly celebrate while other companies don't do it, investors might think something is different than what it is. And it's our intention to make sure that they appropriately calibrated on the severity of things.
Got you. Thanks.
Mark.
Thanks, Sid. So my question relates to Effective 101. So one of the things that in this particular program that we've been talking about recently is a lot of different formats, templates of how to conduct an effective 101 with your team members. And I know that you have a format that you use. And so my question, I guess, boils down to, have you found any challenges with this approach? What do you like about it the most? And if you had a chance to iterate on this approach and improve upon that experience, what would that look like?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think I've been, and Omar will go after me, but I've been reluctant to push for this approach, which I think is the good approach, and I've iterated on, because I haven't seen it be successful for my reports. However, today we had the engineering skip level, and they reported that their boss, Eric Johnson, is now successfully using the format with them, and they like it. So that kind of, now I finally have the data that this format works, and we're going to roll this out. So we're going to give it a name that is so complex I already forgot it, and Omar's going to write the blog post. Omar?
Yeah, I think in general, we will be writing up a blog post to talk a little bit more about how SIP runs these meetings. Got some really good feedback as to how it helps. I've also been using it with my manager, and we'll share it out as we kind of just go into it. And I think, Mark, if you have specific feedback also on having tried it and what hasn't been working for you, just send that my way, because I'll use that as I'm thinking through what may be helpful to put into a blog post to make sure that things are interpreted correctly and the adoption works well, and then we can iterate on it. With that, I'm going to say we're at time.
Thanks, Omar. And the gist of it is this format seems to work well, so we're just going to make it a standard across the company. You can experiment with other things, but by default, we're all going to use the same format.
Thanks, Omar and Sid. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the question, Mark. Really timely. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Sid, for your time. Appreciate it.